You're definitely going to disagree. You may think some of the picks are stupid, and you may downright hate some of the analysis I'm about ready to give you, but I can guarantee one thing during this video. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun. Yo, Headliner Nation, today's video is talking about my biggest bust potential players in every single round of your NFL draft. And this isn't a do not draft video. Some of these guys I'm going to talk about, you should still take a shot at. I just don't like their current ADP, and I don't think they're going to return the value that you're going to want. Or maybe a few of these guys are just a little too risky for their ADP, and there's some players behind them that I would much rather have because they could end up being safer. I've been very vocal about Christian McCaffrey going in the first round with a current overall ADP of 9.3, and I do agree with everybody out there. Christian McCaffrey has top 5 running back potential in fantasy points per game, because I think we do need to bake into the fact that he could miss anywhere from 3 to 5 games in any season. And that's just not knocking Christian McCaffrey. I know any running back can get hurt at any point in time, but the reality is he's going to be 29 this season. He has almost 2,000 career touches, and he has a long track record of not being able to stay healthy. So we have to keep that in consideration when drafting a guy like him in the first round over a guy like Derrick Henry, who continues to be the face of consistency at the running back position for fantasy football. But maybe we should be questioning the San Francisco offense a little bit more than we are right now. No idea when Brandon Ayuk is going to be back, or when he comes back, if he'll even be 100% healthy. And he's really that big, deep threat in that offense. And having a guy like that to stretch the field opens up a lot of things, not only on the ground for CMC, but also in the passing game. Jawan Jennings, another weapon there, is dealing with an injury, but he was also holding out at the beginning of training camp because he wanted a new deal. Now, it is feasible that Ricky Pearsall can take a step forward in year 2. He has the talent to absolutely do so. You're going to have the number 1 tight end, in my opinion, George Kittle, on the offense too. But Christian McCaffrey, they could end up at some points this season just limiting his workload, trying to manage his workload a little bit more than what we've seen in the past. So if you're risk adverse, go with it. Draft CMC, and you could be absolutely stoked about his production all season long. But when it matters most, if he ends up missing time, that's where you're going to be like, maybe I should have went with somebody else. Another player that I have on bust watch now is Puka Nacua, and I've been absolutely fine with his first round ADP all offseason long, until the last week or so. And the big reason is Matthew Stafford. And while it does appear that he's going to get back to practicing and he is getting healthier, those back issues are something he has dealt with for a while now. And if Matthew Stafford misses time, Jimmy Garoppolo is the current backup quarterback for the LA Rams. And we've seen how the Jimmy Garoppolo experience has worked in several different spots. But one thing Puka Nacua is going to have to deal with this year that he didn't really have to worry about last year is Davante Adams. And Davante Adams is clearly more explosive still than what Cooper Kupp is. He's also healthier than what Cooper Kupp was last year, which is really going to be a problem for Puka Nacua, putting up mass amounts of volume, which is really the reason that you were drafting him. We also have to ask ourselves realistically, what is a number of touchdowns that we think Puka Nacua can reach? Because he's not really your big, deep threat. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be scoring touchdowns of 30 or 40 yards. And when you get in the red zone within the 20-yard line there, that's Kyren Williams territory. That's where he's going to start getting touches and he's going to start scoring. So for Puka Nacua, is he going to put up 5 touchdowns? Is it going to be 7? Is he going to get it close to 10? And even if you are in the red zone and they're passing the ball, Davante Adams may end up being that guy. Now, there is one projection of Puka Nacua that I find myself gravitating towards a little bit, and it's over on Underdog right now, where they have his current line of 5.5 games for 100-yard receiving games this season. And I've been leaning towards taking the under with that. And again, it all comes back to several different reasons. Number 1, Puka was not a staple of health last season. Number 2, Stafford's not a staple of health right now. And number 3, I feel like Davante Adams is healthier and more explosive than what Cooper Kupp has been over the last year and a half. And if you want to get a free 2025 fantasy football draft guide, you can go get signed up over on Underdog right now, play this pick'em if you like it, or something else if you don't, and get a free draft guide along with it. All you need to do is download the Underdog app, create a new account, and make a minimum deposit of $10 using code word headliners. You're going to get a deposit bonus that you can use towards a super special pick'em that you're going to get from us here at the Headliners for signing up, or towards this Puka pick'em, any other pick'em you're interested in, and even some best ball drafts. And as soon as you complete your first game over on Underdog, you're going to get your fantasy football draft guide within 24 hours. And you'll be ready to dominate your fantasy leagues, dominate Underdog, and take advantage of the entire NFL season. In round 2, I've got to put Jonathan Taylor on bust watch. I like a lot of players in round 2. And when you got a guy like Bucky Irving and Chase Brown going after Jonathan Taylor, I find it really hard to draft him in his current ADP. When it comes to Jonathan Taylor, he's another running back that just has issues staying on the field. Over the last 3 seasons, he has missed 16 games. That's a lot of games to be missing for a running back. And at the end of last season, I know overall he had a really good performance. But one thing you need to keep in mind that after week 12, that's essentially when all of the production came. Over 50% of his total 2024 production came from weeks 13 through week 18. He was only the RB24 last year, weeks 1 through 12. He had a difficult time getting himself going, and this offense still has a lot of question marks. Is it Anthony Richardson? Is it Daniel Jones? Is it going to be more explosive? Can Jonathan Taylor stay on the field? Can he be more consistent throughout the entire year than what he was last season? And given where his current ADP lies, I really find myself saying, hey, I'll take the upside of Bucky Irving way more often than I'll take what Jonathan Taylor could potentially give me as well. I've been on record that round 3 scares the crap out of me this season. There are some really good players here, but holy cow, there is a lot of risk associated with some of these guys. The first guy's got to be Ladd McConkey, because we don't know what his role is going to look like with Keenan Allen there. And while I'm not jumping off the Ladd McConkey bandwagon right now because I want to see how good Keenan Allen looks in training camp, he could quickly become a guy that just sees a little bit of a downtick in volume. Jackson Smith-Njigba, what is his role going to look like? Last year, he absolutely feasted in the slot with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett outside. But with Cooper Kupp in there now and both of those guys gone, is Jackson Smith-Njigba going to be just as successful as he was now that he's on the outside? Breece Hall, it's all about the offense that he's in. How many rushing opportunities will Justin Fields take away? How many touchdown opportunities will Justin Fields take away? Will people crash on the run if they really don't throw the ball all that well? James Cook, you gotta anticipate a little bit of a regression in the touchdown area, but he's holding out for a new contract, and there's been some talk that he could potentially be traded by week 1. Garrett Wilson, another New York Jet going in the 3rd round that could end up being just fine, because I get it. Him and Justin Fields had a great connection in college, but that was college, a completely different offense against far worse players. I mean, the one guy that I'm not afraid to draft in the 3rd round is Kyren Williams. That is who I would be targeting every single time. And if I don't get him, there's actually guys in the 4th round that I like a little bit more than a majority of these guys in the 3rd. In round 4, I'm going with DJ Moore and James Conner, but I want to start with James Conner because a lot of you may be asking the same question right now. Kyle, you've told us that you're fine drafting James Conner. So why is he listed as one of your bust potentials in round 4? It's very simple. Yes, I have told everybody that if you want to draft James Conner in round 4, I'm fine with it. Given how good he was last season and how good he could be this year, round 4 is really fair value for him. But here's the caveat I have said every single time when it comes to drafting James Conner. you need to have Trey Benson. And that's why James Conner has some of the biggest bust potential for me in round 4. Because if you draft Conner and you get Trey Benson, you're probably going to be fine. But if you draft James Conner and you miss out on Trey Benson, you could end up being in a really bad position because Conner is probably going to be your RB2. And depending on how good your RB depth is, you might not love who you have to start in his place every single week. James Conner is on the wrong side of 30. He's another running back who has missed time in the past. And Trey Benson, the young guy with a lot of explosive potential, is waiting right behind him. So if you're drafting James Conner, you gotta have Trey Benson. Last night in Discord, myself and several other members of the community hopped into a voice chat and talked for a while about several things within fantasy football. And one of the things that we dove into was the Chicago Bears. If you're interested in being a part of those conversations and you want some more direct access to myself and Jake, plus the opportunity to hang out with a ton of great people in the fantasy football world, you should become a member by hitting the join button down below and getting access to our exclusive Discord that has a ton of benefits that come along with it. Plus, you get special members only videos right here on the channel. But we talked about Caleb Williams and his potential growth in Ben Johnson's offense. And part of my concern is whether or not Ben Johnson's offense is going to be too complicated for Caleb Williams to pick up right away. What if it takes a year for Caleb Williams to really settle in, or half the season, or 3/4 of the season before you start to see your growth? DJ Moore, I feel like, could get trapped in a lot of those issues. And I love DJ Moore. I've been a truther from the moment that he was drafted, and I still think he's one of the best open field wide receivers in all of football. When you get the ball in his hands in open space, he can do some truly special things. But if Caleb Williams doesn't really grow this season, that's not great for DJ Moore. Plus, you have to remember that the Chicago Bears spent a top 10 pick on Colston Loveland. They clearly are going to get him involved in the passing game. They still have Cole Kmet, and they have one of the best contested catch wide receivers from all of college football a couple of years ago, Rome Odunze. Plus, DeAndre Swift, what is going to be his role in the passing game as well? There's just a lot of question marks right now. And to draft DJ Moore in the 4th round, potentially as your wide receiver too, that's a little spicy for me, and I would rather have somebody a lot safer. Let's take a moment to address the elephant in the draft room, and that's Courtland Sutton in the 5th round, because we've seen your comments. You guys have let us know, hey, why is he not a guy that you have ranked higher? Hey, why is he a guy that you're not really painting a flattering picture of? He could have a big season. And I get all of that. He could have a big season. But I also think that he's not trending in the right direction right now, even with the contract that he was given, because the offense as a whole looks a lot different this year than it did last year when Courtland Sutton really was the volume guy there in Denver, because you've added Evan Ingram, and Evan Ingram is clearly a guy that Sean Payton wants to get involved. And if he's the clear number 2 target on this team, you're going to see opportunities go his way before they go to Courtland Sutton. Number 2, they've redone the run game. With J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, they're set up for a lot more success running the football this year than what they were last season. And if they can run the football more effectively, maybe it does take a little bit of a hit to the passing game. But what about the plethora of deep options they have as wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s? When you look at the depth chart, I don't see a bunch of wide receivers that are better than Courtland Sutton, but I do see a bunch of guys that could see a different workload and maybe some breakout potential in 2025. Devon Vell, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims Jr. You just drafted Pat Bryant out of Illinois, who is a really good deep ball player. With all of those guys kind of mixing in and out and potentially taking a step forward, that is also guys that can hurt the potential production of Courtland Sutton. And once again, with all of that surrounding him, here in the 5th round, I just don't love it, because even though he found himself flirting with top 12 potential last season, I think he's going to have times where he flirts with top 24 potential in 2025. And Joe Mixon, there's not really a whole lot that I need to say here, because I am shocked that Joe Mixon is still going in the 5th round. And we don't even know when the guy's going to play football because he's banged up. He's injured right now. He's got an undisclosed leg injury. He hasn't done anything in training camp. There's no timetable for his return. And by the time he does come back, how long is it going to take him to get up to game speed? And by the way, he's got a really hungry Nick Chubb behind him who's going to be running angry. And I'll tell you what, Nick Chubb running angry after the way he runs just normally, even with the leg injury, I'm not sure that's something that I want to compete with. I'm out on Joe Mixon in the 5th round, and that's coming from a guy who has defended Joe Mixon his entire career. In round 6, I've got a couple of risky picks at the running back position that make sense, and I don't think are necessarily bad picks, but I do think they are picks that could end up costing you some games if you're really relying on them to be flex-like players. If you're drafting DeAndre Swift or Isaiah Pacheco as your RB2, though, we need to have a conversation because clearly you have not been coming to your headliner counseling sessions because you're setting yourself up for failure drafting that way. When it comes to DeAndre Swift, a lot of the same things when I talked about DJ Moore. I think the Chicago Bears offense is going to be highly volatile in 2025. I think they're going to have some really, really good games, but I also think they're going to have some games where it just feels like they can't put it all together. And I don't know if I fully trust DeAndre Swift to all of a sudden, after all these years, to be a top 12 performer on a consistent basis. Now, he's not being drafted as a top 12 running back, which is fine. He's being drafted as the RB24, but I think there's some people out there that are thinking he's going to be a top 12 running back. And when you get in that type of mindset, you start drafting guys with an expectation that's unrealistic. So while you draft DeAndre Swift as the RB24, if you draft him as your RB2 expecting top 12 upside, you're really hurting yourself. The thing I love most about Isaiah Pacheco is the thing that could end up costing fantasy owners, and it's how hard of a runner he is. This guy does not shy away from contact and will run through anybody before he goes around them. But that's why he gets so banged up. Last year, he missed a ton of time. But even a couple of years ago in his sophomore season where he had breakout potential, he also missed time, but he just seemed like he was a guy that's consistently on the injury report. But this is another guy that just feels like he has inflated value. Even though he's being drafted where he's at, I think owners sometimes get into this mindset that because he plays for the Kansas City Chiefs and he's going to be in a good offense, he's got this RB1 type of upside where, hey, if I draft him as my RB2, I'm going to have a ton of upside and he's going to be a great RB2, when realistically, you should be drafting him as your RB3. So if you're drafting him here as your RB3 as a flex option, not nearly as bad. You won't be nearly as upset if Isaiah Pacheco misses time and you have to play your RB4 or maybe a wide receiver in the flex. But again, it kind of comes down to mindset. If you're drafting Swift and Pacheco as your RB2s, you're doing it wrong. If you're drafting them as your RB3s, is the bust potential nearly as high? No, because you can survive that way easier. But another concern for Isaiah Pacheco is he's just not all that efficient, which can really limit his upside at times. Again, he runs through players. He will take on contact wherever, but if he can make a few more guys miss, some avoided tackles would go a long way towards allowing him to pick up extra yards instead of just running headlong into a defender and then going down a couple of yards at a time. He's not that type of running back, though, so I'm not really asking him to do that. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry a couple of years ago, which on the surface level for efficiency looks all right. But then when you dig deeper into the numbers, avoided tackles, yards after contact per attempt, those type of numbers just don't really put him inside the top 20 running backs all that often. I'm still going to go ahead and do rounds 7, 8, 9, and 10, but let's be very honest. At this point of your draft, bust is a pretty strong word for a lot of these guys because, yeah, you're starting to kind of fill in your roster right now, but if you're drafting right, several of these guys that we're going to talk about are going to be more like backup options. So I don't know if I would label these guys as a bust, but I definitely would label them as maybe more of a risky gamble in the later rounds than what you should be doing, or the fact that there's other risky gambles that have way more potential than them. And in round 7, it's got to be Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Chris Godwin for me. When it comes to Chris Godwin, and you take a look at where he's being drafted with an ADP of 81, I mean, even with the 3-game suspension, I would definitely take Jordan Addison over Chris Godwin, because Jordan Addison's going to miss 3 games. Chris Godwin's going to miss some time, and we don't even know what that is as of yet. And then when he comes back, is Emeka Egbuka the guy? Is Mike Evans still the guy? Jalen McMillan, Cade Otton, Bucky Irving. I mean, there's just so many weapons around him. And Rome Odunze, he's going after Chris Godwin. And even though I have question marks about the Chicago offense, I'll take the upside of Rome Odunze every single week over Chris Godwin, who, once again, we don't even know what he's going to look like this season. And with Tyrone Tracy going at the end of the 7th round, I just don't trust him and his fumbling issues. Now, Tyrone Tracy was a sleeper candidate for me last season. And coming out of college, I think he was very underrated as a runner because he was a wide receiver for a majority of his career. So people really didn't know how he would translate to the NFL level. He did a good job last season, but he put the ball on the ground way too often. Now, the good news for Tyrone Tracy right now is that Cam Scatabo has been banged up. But as soon as Cam Scatabo is healthy and Tyrone Tracy has trouble holding on to the football, Scatabo will take that job fast. Brian Dable doesn't have any room to mess around this season. He's on the hot seat. You screw up, you're finding the bench. In the 8th round, I got to start with Quinshon Judkins. What are we doing drafting this guy in the 8th round still? I would rather take Dylan Sampson, who might end up as a free agent in most leagues, but as of right now has a better shot at playing this season than what Judkins does. We realize that Judkins didn't even sign his deal, right? Like, he never signed his rookie contract prior to all the legal issues. And now we have the legal issues, which don't really have an update. That's a cause of concern. Quinshon Judkins, first off, might not even be ready for the regular season at this point. And even if he is, when does he end up playing? Does he deal with any type of a suspension? The rookie contract, when does that get signed? And what comes down in terms of the actual charges he's facing? I don't see why we're drafting Quinshon Judkins in the 8th. I really feel like people are overreacting to Travis Etienne starting the Jags preseason game the other day. Tank Bigsby ran with the 2s, and if you look at it on paper, yeah, maybe you don't feel great about that, but I still don't think Travis Etienne is going to be the guy that sees the majority of the workload. Tank Bigsby is clearly the better runner on the ground, and even if he doesn't help a whole lot in passing situations, if Travis Etienne is limited to that role, why is he being drafted so much higher than what Tank Bigsby is? Especially if you plan on running the football to offset what the passing game can do. And with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. and Brenton Strange, do we think they're going to be stacking the box a whole often? I really don't think so. Travis Etienne going this high is still very confusing for me. In round 9, I've got 3 guys, Juwan Jennings being the first one, and it's hard for me to draft Juwan Jennings right now, knowing that A, he's dealing with an injury, but B, he was planning to hold out until he got a new contract, and as we've seen with San Francisco, they don't really budge all that quickly when it comes to new deals. Jayden Reed had 10 dropped passes last season. That's the same amount of Jayden Reed had 10 dropped passes last season. That's the same amount of drops as Jamar Chase, with half the targets. Do you really think Jordan Love is going to trust this guy in 2025? I think Matthew Golden is a way better bet than Jayden Reed. And I am listing Tucker Kraft here as well because personally, I'm going to risk it with Jake Ferguson over Tucker Kraft. And Jake Ferguson is still going a couple of rounds later, so he's a much better value in my opinion. And before you start to tell me that I'm a biased Lions fan, excuse me, Josh Jacobs is one of my must-own running backs this season. I have been talking up Matthew Golden since he was drafted by the Packers. And hey, Jordan Love with where he's being drafted, I think he's a huge value. I've been telling everybody Jordan Love could absolutely be back inside the top 12. But for Tucker Kraft, I think he could be the number 2 target, but I think he could end up being the number 5 target as well. I know the tight end position is very volatile, but he seems like one of the most volatile, especially being drafted over some other guys that have a really good opportunity at a better ADP. And here in the 10th round, Caleb Williams, I've already discussed this Bears offense and why I have concerns. They could be a top 5 offense, they could be a bottom 5 offense, and that is a ton of pressure on Caleb Williams to make sure that doesn't happen. But Ramondre Stevenson is a guy that I wouldn't say that I've cooled on, because I wasn't telling anyone to draft Ramondre Stevenson, but I was telling people that Ramondre Stevenson could end up causing issues for TreVeyon Henderson in his rookie year. And I feel like those concerns are fading rapidly, especially with how good Henderson has looked in training camp. When it comes to Ramondre Stevenson, it really feels like now he is on the way out. And while he will still get some touches and be utilized, I'm definitely not drafting him to be a starter for my team. Headliner Nation, 10 rounds of ADP, my biggest bust potential for every single round. Let me know in the comments below who you think is your biggest bust for every single round. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Get your draft guide so you can start preparing for the beginning of the season right now, and I hope to see you back on more videos soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.